All right, Kevin, back with you for another episode of Million Dollar Relationships. And today I am here with Brian Bogert. Brian, welcome. I am so awesome. I'm just so excited to have you here today.
Man, I'm excited for the opportunity to have a conversation with you. Obviously,
Yeah.
intro through a good friend of ours, Trevor, and I'm sure you'll give a little shout out to him as well. But anybody that I meet through him is an instant friend. And after a couple of minutes of talking, that was true with you as well. So thank you.
Totally. And you're right. You know, when it comes down to relationships, and I know, yeah, right from the moment we got on Zoom here together today, I mean, we were just totally riffing with each other and just like we'd known each other for years,
Yep.
And so I want to give a big shout out to Trevor Turnbull because like you said before we hit the record button, you said, Kev, anytime Trevor says you need to connect or you need to have a conversation with so-and-so, he is always spot on and always great things come from that. And you're right, and that's the value in relationships right there. And so what I'd like to do is just start off by turning it over to you and let you share a little bit about your background, what you do, who you serve, what inspires you to do what you do. So we can just set some context and let everybody know who is Brian and what are you all about, Brian?
Yeah. Well, I love even how you asked that last question. That's something I try to challenge a lot of people to do, is just ask people who they are. And unfortunately, most people answer with what they do, but that's not going to be my answer for you today. Who I am, I'm a husband and father first. I'm a man who is deeply curious by the human experience, human connection, and human behavior, and who has lived a life pushing the limits of what I always believed was possible, but also pushing a lot down without even realizing it. And over the years, as my success externally has raised, and I started to become aware of the emptiness inside that existed regardless of the external path, when I realized that it doesn't have to be this way and I can live holistically with joy, freedom, and fulfillment in my life. Yeah. That's what I'm all about, is helping unlock others by helping them identify and take out the trash from their past that's keeping them stuck. I'll tell you, I had a lot of it brought into my world early. When I was 7 years old, I was run over by a truck and my left arm was completely severed from my body.
Wow.
It was reattached. And I have to pause for 1 minute when I tell this story because it was a traumatic accident. I have, in many situations, told a lot more long, drawn out version of it. But what's most important as it relates to relationships is there was somebody there that day that is responsible for saving my life and limb. There was a nurse that walked out of the store right when she saw the accident happened, who could have turned her head and gone on with her day. And interesting enough, I met her for the first time this year on the 30th anniversary of the accident.
Wow.
And I've honored and said that I'm forever indebted to this woman for making that choice in that moment. And it carried even more weight when I realized that she had a friend with her that day who was also a nurse who chose to go home. Now, I don't say that with vilification of the person at all that chose to go away. It is only reinforcing the depth of the impact of this one choice, because she came over and stopped the bleeding on the main wound and saved my life. And she instructed some innocent bystanders to run inside, grab a cooler, and get my detached limb on ice within minutes to give me a fighting chance of reattaching my limb. And so if it was not for this woman, Kevin, I either wouldn't be here with you today, or I'd be here with you today with a cleaned up stump. That's just the reality. And so what I know is that I have a really unique story. But what I also know, and the more time I've done this, is that every single one of us has a unique story. What's important is that we pause long enough to extract the lessons we can from our stories so that we become intentional in how do we apply them in our lives. And we all have the ability to do that. And we also all have the ability to tap into the collective wisdom of other people's lessons to shorten our own curve to learning.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we'll talk about a few of those lessons today, but I'll tell you that at the highest level, one of my core lessons that I learned almost instantaneously after this accident was I learned very early not to get stuck by the things that have happened to me, but instead get moved by what I can do with them.
Yeah.
And I've learned through all of this time that moved people move people. Yeah. So we're just trying to move as many people as we possibly can so that we can have a collective impact of over 1 billion lives as quickly as possible by reducing the level of suffering that exists on this planet. Because I believe, just like you do, in trying to highlight who people are and bring them out, that if we can reduce the level of internal suffering that exists, causing people to feel like they need to protect themselves and hide and not operate at the highest level of what they're capable of and who they are, it doesn't have to be that way. And we can allow and flip it on its head so that we can allow people to not only be confident, but convicted in who they are, knowing that they can stand on their own 2 feet and that the world will not just accept them, but will embrace them for who they are. That's the mission I'm on, brother, because I want to build a world that my kids and my grandkids don't ever have to question what connection and human connection looks like.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That is powerful. That is powerful. Boy, I really appreciate you sharing that, Brian, because man, I had no idea about that backstory. And heck, now I'm curious. And of course, I'm looking forward to getting to know you more. So I really appreciate that. So, okay, so now that we've got a little bit of context set here, I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of the listeners. So have you ever been introduced to a person that completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person? And Brian, I'm really excited to have you share your story, your experience around this, and I know it's going to be impactful.
Yeah, thank you. You know, obviously this woman who saved my life is one of those people, because I wouldn't be here without her. But there are many others in my life, and I have to honor my family and others, but there is one person that stands out above all the rest. And that's my wife. Every morning that I wake up and she's still in bed next to me and she's decided to fight another day in this world with me, it's a victory right out of the gate. But I will tell you that my wife is the one that's responsible for allowing me to actually look inside, flip open the lid on my own proverbial trash can and see what's risen to the top. She's the one that allowed me to realize that the pains of my past don't have to predict my future. She's the one that held and realized that I can operate at a standard that many don't believe is possible, but it's in alignment with who I am. And I don't have to question that. She's the one that made me realize that I dealt with shame at a deep level that impacted my life and my business significantly for years. She's the one that helped me realize, because she had the courage to do so, that I dealt with such a deep level of anger. It was buried so deep it could barely be excavated. She's the one that helped me realize that the path I was on, chasing all the what's of the world, what house, what car, what amount of money, what amount of success, is ultimately what led me to feeling empty, because what I really needed was who in my life, not what. And she allowed me to take the chance to double down on the bet with myself, because she's the one that, after we built a $15 million business in risk management and employee benefits consulting, and we're sitting in a great position, having all the what's we ever thought we were going to create, it also cost me the ultimate who, which was myself. I lost who I was. And she helped me reclaim that, rebuild that, and ultimately gave me the permission to execute that by selling that business and actually chase what my potential and impact could really look like. She's also the one that gave me my 2 beautiful children, who are a direct reflection of me and are hands down the greatest coaches I've ever had in my life. She also met me not long after I rebroke my left arm when I was 20 snowboarding, when it went 10 months hanging by my side, went through 7 surgeons who were afraid to touch me. And what I thought was my transformational story in having my arm ripped off in that prior period 13 years earlier, that was the trauma. It's also what caused me to actually create a lot of trash in my life. And it was a simple mere break in my arm that allowed me to realize the trash I'd been carrying for that prior period and what I needed to start to take out. And so our anniversary was last week, and I'm just feeling called to, in this moment, read you something that I wrote for her last week, because it really absolutely defines where we are and the gratitude I have for her. Today is our anniversary, and it's hard to believe the passing of time. 16 years together and 12 married has made me feel in moments that you are mine. The more life and experience that has passed, the more we realize the importance of taking out our trash. Countless times it's made us trip and fall. It's easy to feel stuck when progress can feel so gradual. If it wasn't for you, I may have never flipped my lid. I would have likely been stuck feeling empty and defeated. It still amazes me, given the love and connection we have formed, the amount of years we've convinced ourselves that we needed to conform. In hindsight, it's obvious how much we wanted to vulnerably confide. It's also sad to realize how much our pasts had convinced us that even with each other, we needed to hide. I'm beyond grateful I have a partner who's willing and able to scan the can. Though I've developed and teach it, I sometimes still struggle with this, especially as a man. I'm learning that true strength actually hides behind vulnerability. The truth can come out, and we can feel safe and connected with stability. I'm still learning and evolving to let go of this strife. But what's most important is that you realize the gratitude I have that despite my trash, you continue to choose to be my wife. Things have shifted now, and I see clearly you are not mine. Instead, we are partners in this experience we call life, and I'll love you as long as I live, one moment at a time.
Wow. Wow. What an amazing tribute. Wow.
I wouldn't be here if it was not for my wife. We would not be where we are in our business and life if it was not for my wife.
Yeah.
And there was a period in time when my anger was something I was blind to, that I had this moment, this glimpse, this belief that my wife was weak. Once I realized the anger, I realized the power of who I am, the power of my energy, and my power to infuse life into people. When flipped on the other side, it also can absolutely cut somebody to the core. For her to have existed in that chaos for any period of time, let alone well over a decade, showed me that there isn't an ounce of weakness in this woman, because no one can sustain that type of environment for that period of time without unbelievable strength. And I also used to believe that as a result of it, that she didn't love me in moments. But again, the truth is quite the opposite. There is no way she'd stick around unless she had a deep level of love and a deep level of strength to hold that mirror and reflect it back for me to see the truth.
Yeah. 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 Wow. You know, this is so interesting, Brian, because I know before we hit the record button, you and I were just talking, one of the things that I commented on was because I had just, I had gone to your Facebook page and I just, seen some of your posts and stuff and seen some of the stuff videos that you and your wife have done. And I commented to you, I said, what I think is really cool is how you and your wife just kind of play off of each other. And that was just like a really surface level, like just thing that I noticed, but now having heard what you just shared, it goes so deep, this relationship that you and your wife have. And not only for the two of you, but my gosh, I can only imagine how many lives have already been impacted by just, the work that you do and stuff, but also how many lives are going to be impacted going forward and stuff. And, the thing that I noticed, it was almost like in casual passing that I noticed it. And then I commented to you on it. But now after hearing this, and even when we were talking before we hit the record button, I'm like, man, I'm really stoked to get to know Brian more, And so I want to ask you one follow-up question, because I'm really curious to hear your response to this. If you think about, just all the things that have transpired over the time that you and your wife have been together, what is one thing that really stands out to you that has transpired, or an impact that you guys have made that would have never happened had you not met your wife?
Man, the list is so long to narrow it down. You know, that's a hard question for me to answer because again, you heard through even my answer the first time, all the depth of ways that she's had impact and things that wouldn't have happened without her. So to pick one thing, I don't believe that I or we would have been in a position to truly understand the impact of generationally inherited patterns and trauma.
Okay.
And how we can create a model for what it looks like to break those generational patterns, to allow our children to escape some of the same perils that we, unfortunately, were subject to ourselves from the pasts of our families and the ways that we were brought up and the ways that our parents brought their traumas and pasts into the way they parented. If it was not for her, I'm not sure that there's another human being that I've interacted with that's been able to hold such an objective, non-judgmental mirror up for me with absolute truth, absolute grace, absolute empathy and compassion, to really be able to hold that space that we were talking about early for us to do the deep work. It wouldn't have happened probably with many other partners I could have had. She is a very unique individual, and I say this often. I far outkicked my coverage, and I'm grateful every day I wake up next to her because she is the ultimate gift in my life.
Yeah, for sure.
And I say that in a way that there is no longer unhealthy codependency patterns. There is no longer elements of control in a way that either one of us have entered into the relationship. You see, the factor on this is, as partners, we can only truly be partners if we are both whole selves. We were both of a half of an equation or a part of an equation at some point, and now we're a 1 + 1 = infinite. And that's a different game than just trying to close each other's gaps and be equal share partners.
Yeah.
We're additive to each other's lives, not just complementary.
Wow. Brian, I really appreciate you taking the time to not just have this conversation, but just to really share from your heart. And man, that's powerful. That means so much for anybody listening to this going just like, man, Kev, I love Brian. I love the way he shows up. I love what he has to share. How can they find out? I mean, I know you got your website there on your thing, but how can they find out more about you, about the work you guys are doing, all of that?
Yeah, we're at Bogert Brian on any social media platform. We have a variety of different resources, and again, the level of impact we want to create, most of what we're creating is a lot of free resources for people to enter into our world. And so what I would say is that in any of those cases, if they want to learn more, one of the quickest and easiest ways to do that is, I would say, on any of the social media platforms, shoot me a DM with the keywords rapid fire.
Okay.
We have a rapid fire coaching community that we meet 3 times a month on Zoom, and the whole group is bound and glued together with vulnerability and authenticity, where we're helping people identify and take out their trash and move in their lives, businesses, health, relationships, etc., in a really unique container that many have said doesn't exist elsewhere. Yeah. And so I don't say that to impress. I say it to impress on the point that it's not because of me, it's because of the collective wisdom that exists in this group. But we give 45 free days to anybody who wants to come see what it's like before they ever pay $1. Because I wanted to make sure that, given the fact that a lot of our 1-to-1 and even group stuff are 4- and 5-figure type engagements, I wanted zero barrier of entry for anybody from a financial component. So after the 45 free days, it's $44. But legitimately, the point is it's there because I don't want anybody to have to not get the coaching, help, and community support that they need to get to their next level in life and to be able to get unstuck from the shit from their past.
Wow. What an amazing and generous offer. That's awesome. That is awesome. And I will make sure that we include that with the notes when this podcast is released.
I'll give you a link, in fact, so that people can just click on the link to the 45 free day and they can register that way.
Okay.
That way it'll be in the show notes and it'll be really
Okay.
easy. And then if anybody can't find it there, they can still shoot me the DM and we'll send it direct.
Perfect. Perfect. Brian, any last thoughts you want to share before we call it a wrap?
You know what? As we shift into this next period of time, the biggest thing that I really just want to bring to everybody's awareness is too many people are waiting for a savior. Too many people are waiting for a hero. And if you're one of those people that's waiting around for someone to ride in, knight on shining armor on that white pearly horse and just solve all your problems, right? Or positions it that way through a strategy and tactic that they're selling you that's going to get you to that next level that you want to reach, I can tell you definitively the things that keep us stuck are not those external strategy and tactics. It's the internal emotional triggers, which are our trash, behavioral patterns, and environmental conditioning. But what I can tell you is that you are your own savior. You are your own hero. You just have to do the work, because whatever you're reacting to in or externally is telling you where your trash lies internally. Just flip open the lid, look inside, scan the can, and please know that you don't have to remain stuck. You just have to look inside and know the right questions to ask.
Wow, that's powerful right there. That's powerful. Brian, thank you again so much for taking the time to have this conversation today. And Trevor, I'm going to give you another shout out, man. Thank you so much for connecting Brian and I, because I have a feeling this is the start of something really cool. So Trevor, thank you to you too, man. So, all right. Thanks again, Brian.
Thank you, brother.